Welcome to the Spark by Hollywood podcast. I am your host, Devora Goldberg. In this podcast, I guide my listeners through a deeper look into the parallel paradigm of Hollywood versus Jewish love, relationships, and empowerment, and uncover which one is truly attainable and sustainable to achieve. Thank you so much for joining. So we're all familiar with Hollywood. We watch their movies, we follow their shows, and we become quite obsessed with the daily lives of the actors and celebrities as well. Of course, the media loves to give us a constant paparazzi into their lives and their relationships and their dynamics. And because these celebrities are always in the limelight, we follow them, we emulate them, and then we sometimes translate that whatever is going on in their lives will translate into our lives in some kind of fairy tale love relationships just like them. But the question really is if it's truly what they are exemplifying, if that's really what is sustainable and attainable for our own lives. Now, today we are honored to have join us for this episode, a dear friend of mine, Arielle Leavitt, who, by the way, has her own podcast as well called Connector. Arielle, what an honor to have you. Thank you for joining.
Oh, thank you so much. I love what you're doing, and it's just an amazing podcast.
Oh, thank you. Mm-hmm. And for those in my audience who don't know you yet, you are the kind of person who lights up any room that you walk into. You just have this aura of positivity, love, happiness, just a gentle nature. And we didn't meet that long ago, but I feel like we've been friends for ages. And the reason why I wanted to have you on this show is because when we met originally, we were at a Shabbat meal and you were there with your parents. And of course, Shabbat meals are busy. People are serving, everyone's chatting. But there was something that touched me, that sparked me when I saw the relationship of your parents. And I wanted to have you on the show because I wanted you to give us the perspective of a daughter watching parents in a strong relationship, a strong love for each other, and how that impacted you as a child and how that impacted you as an adult today.
So, okay, I'm happy to start wherever.
Start wherever.
Okay. So I have been very, very blessed to have two amazing parents that truly love each other and have worked so hard on their marriage. Like even like when we were younger, like if they had like some sort of disagreement or something that one wanted to do it another way, whatever it is, right? Like that does happen. Parenting is a whole learning experience. You're doing this together. You guys don't know what you're doing. Like, right. Like I'm not a parent, but like you're a parent. So like, right. Like figuring out that first child, Absolutely. Especially, it's like, what are we doing? But I feel so blessed to have my parents, like anytime there was some sort of disagreement that would come up, they really would just talk about it, especially not in front of us either. But I never heard raised voices, like even at night or any time of the day. And if they did talk about something in front of us, they really did communicate very beautifully and just said like, hey, this is important to me. I really would love to do it this way. This is the reason why. And had that communication between each other, which is amazing, right? Like it's not easy. It takes a lot of work to do that because Absolutely. Like if you're triggered, your initial reaction is to yell or scream or get heated, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's usually, or shut down completely. Some people shut down, don't want to talk about it, walk away. There's many different ways people deal with being triggered.
Absolutely.
And so the way that they handled it is just, I think it's absolutely beautiful. And I am so grateful because then when I was going into like my first relationship or whatever, I just thought like all relationships were kind of like this, where like
that's incredible, and you're just looking at through that lens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was also like so blessed to have like my aunts and uncles have beautiful, loving relationships. Mm-hmm. Like everybody I knew immediately or pretty close to me all had beautiful, loving relationships, and I was like, wow, like I just never didn't think of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had friends who their parents got divorced or different things like that, but I just never. It wasn't even until like, honestly, like I was like 15 or so, like when that, or like between 13 and 15, when that really kind of started happening with my friends, or if it did happen really, really early on and it just didn't even faze me. Like, so I didn't even think of it because even like their divorces were very amicable and like, they also like treated it very nicely. So it's funny that I've always been surrounded by that. Right.
Yes.
Like, and I feel so blessed again to be able to like have that. And my parents, one thing that I noticed, I did have a podcast called Elevate Love for a long time.
Yes.
That interviewed beautiful, loving relationships and everything. And one thing that I noticed that kept coming up for people with relationships is just loving that person and accepting them for who they are. And the fact that like my parents really truly did that through all the years, and like to this day, my parents say to each other all the time, like, just like, oh my gosh, like, is this person like so incredible? Like my mom will say that all the time about my dad.
Yes.
Like, he's just amazing. He's just amazing how he does this or how he does, you know, all the time, when it's so easy to like get into that, like, oh, I wish it was this way, or I wish it was that way, or I wish
Yes.
instead of just being in awe of that person all the time, because they
Yes.
are incredible. You married them for a reason.
Exactly. And how amazing that you had that paradigm of this, having this foundation of your mom always saying, or even your dad, maybe to your mom as well, how incredible they are. Because like you said, things come up every day, things that we don't think are going to be coming up. Just the mere fact that you're raising children adds another dimension of a challenge for the parents. Maybe something comes up and he wants to deal with it one way and she wants to deal with another way. And that could cause a friction between them. But your parents chose, like you said, to discuss it in a way which was amicable, which was nice. And like you said, you didn't even hear any of those disagreements or frictions growing up. So how amazing is that you had that foundation to draw upon for just your outlook on relationships, and also for yourself, you know, how you view relationships and how you view yourself in one as well.
And it was very important to me, like, that I have relationships where we do not yell at each other. So the first time I ever had my first serious relationship, we got, you know, like our first fight, right? Like,
what's that?
Everybody remembers our first disagreement.
Right.
And I was like, I was like, what? Like, you're yelling at me? You're upset with me? Like, I what is this? Right. I don't know how to deal with conflict. I don't know. Like, usually we just talk, or it's just easy. Like, I just saw my parents and my aunts and uncles' relationships just being easy.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is not easy. What is this? What is this? And so, I really thought that was interesting, that I just didn't even know how to handle it, honestly, because I was just like, you're coming at me.
Yes.
So then, I mean, it takes some tools, though, to have those communications.
It definitely does. And like you said, you know, sometimes you just look at the people around you and they're like, oh, these people have it all together. My aunts, my uncles, my parents, look at them. They're just, you know, they just know how to do it. They know how to handle these arguments, but we don't know how much self-control or what a person is working on at the same time, or a potential trigger point that they're working against, and they're not reacting the way they may want to, in order for it to sound nice, in order to be nice to the other person. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask you, Arielle, because something shifted in your family a number of years ago, and I want you to, if you could embellish on that and let us know if that impacted your parents' relationship at all.
Yeah. So my dad had a stroke 10 years ago, and it was a very, like, my family's very close and tight knit, and when that happened, it was just like, you know, it's a very sudden thing, and you don't know how it's going to end up being.
Right.
And it just was fascinating to see my parents like go through this together. Like, as we went through it as a family unit. Mm-hmm. But again, my mom would always just say, like, oh my gosh, he's so incredible that he's able to continue to do that, or he does it that way, or just in awe of everything he does. And instead of looking at the limitations of like, oh, he can't do this, or he can't go out to dinner anymore. It's this way, it's that. Mm-hmm. Like, because once you start feeding on that, you're going to see more of it. And the fact that she feeds on I think she's incredible. And so is my dad. I mean, they really are incredible people. Yes. And the fact that she says all the time these amazing things about him, it makes the whole process easier, because yes, her person that, like, she, you know, they've been married like 40 years, almost 40 years. Wow. And, you know, this person that she, you know, for about 30 years, right, of her marriage, this person was like her ride or die, right? Like, this is her, like, person she gets to have fun with and all these things. And then all of a sudden that's not available for her anymore. And the dynamic has changed. And so she could either get frustrated and hurt and like, how could this have happened to me? Mm-hmm. But instead she has decided to, like, look at it as like, you know, the glass half full or, you know, half empty, half full or whatever.
Yes.
And she really is like half full. It is, she just is like, great. What else can we do together? How else can we have this life together? Of course, there are times where she, you know, misses who he was, right? Like anybody would. But she's still obviously so grateful that he's here and able to be who he is and to do the things like get dressed on his own and do like there's certain things that are just incredible. And she's like, wow, it amazes me how he can do that and not complain and just be, you know, going with everything and have this positive attitude with it. And she's like, wow. Like, so when she's having a hard day, she's like, I can't even complain because look at him. Like,
yes, and what he has to go through.
Yeah.
That's amazing because as you're speaking, Arielle, I'm kind of thinking of a flower, and we know the flowers can either wilt and die, kind of the things that I do when I buy plants. I love plants and I buy them, but the running joke in the family is I don't know how to keep them alive. My husband's like, could we just stick with the plastics? I'm like, please, one more. I promise I'll take care of it, right? So your flowers can either wilt and die when we are in situations where we are self-wallowing in a situation that we're in, or I'm thinking of your mom, like just having all these roses just budding all around her because every situation, instead of complaining and feeling like the victim, she's coming out and saying, not only seeing the positive, but also the words that she chooses, look how amazing he is, that also does something to someone's psyche. It must do something to your dad's psyche, like, wow, I can do this. I can do more of it. My wife believes in me. My wife, who's my rock, still thinks I'm so amazing. And then obviously the other dynamic, the children in the family or other family members can watch that and also just be positive and cheer him on. And how amazing. I'm just blown away. How amazing that the dynamics have changed, but the love and the strong foundation of respect for each other is still there.
Yeah. No, it really is incredible. And that they choose to, like you said, I think that's so beautiful, like that they both feed off of that energy, right? So they're both like, okay, you believe in me, I believe in myself. And it goes back to that, like there is a reason why you guys met, right? Like there's a reason why two people came together and decided to get married. You didn't just like do it. I mean, some people do it for whatever reasons, right? But the majority of people do it because of love.
Yes.
And they fell in love with that person. It's just so important that you don't fall in love with the thought of that person or the potential you think that person has. Fall in love with that person of who they are at this moment and who they like are just right here, who they're giving you at this time, because that's where you need to start as a baseline, I believe, because it's when you see potential in somebody, it's never going to work because you're always going to want to have them live up to that potential. And they're never going to satisfy it for you.
That should be a quote, you know that. So not looking at the person's potential, but looking at the person's essence. And when you see them for their essence and you love them for their essence, then it's going to carry you through. But looking at a person's potential and trying to have them measure up to that potential, that is a recipe, like you're saying, for disaster.
Or divorce, honestly. Like I hate to say that. Or miserable marriage. Because you're never going to be satisfied.
Wow. So potent. Amazing. If your parents were here right now in this room, what would you say to them?
Oh, I just think they're amazing. I think they're totally incredible people. And I am just so blessed to have them as my parents. Yes. And just so they're like supportive of me. I'm supportive of them. We just are like, one of the things that my mom always like instilled in us is like my brother and I, so it's 4 of us in my family. And that we are, a family unit and we do things together and we support each other. So like when I was growing up, we were never allowed like money for chores. And so I thought that was like, she's like, no, I'm not going to pay you to do what you need to do to help out for the family. We all help each other out.
Exactly.
We're here to help so she's like, I help you by giving you some food and preparing food for you. You're going to help me by sweeping the floor or emptying out the dishwasher or whatever it may be. And we're going to just help each other as a family unit. And I think that's just like how my parents also had their marriage is just like, it was an equal in that sense. We're like, I'm going to help you do this. And if you can help me do that, and then we can balance each other more instead of just expecting like one person to just do that and the other person to just do that. And then after a while, it's hard because you It's nice to have the support of each other.
Yes. And there are some relationship dynamics which are like that, where you have chores. It's like he takes out the trash and she does the dishes, or however it's divvied up. But I like what you said. It's just like, we're here as a supportive unit. We help each other. It's not so much of expectations, but it's just when we're ready to help out, we do it, and the support is there and we all feel it.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then like, it was nice that like my brother and I felt like we were helping out the family instead of like doing it because we had to do it, or we were going to be punished or whatever it may be. So it also gave us a purpose, right? We as people, we need purpose. The opposite of purpose is depression. So it's nice that everybody feels purposeful in the family.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So it's really amazing how they came together to be able to parent together that way. I mean, it obviously they didn't go in the marriage with like, oh, this is how we're going to parent. Like they talked about it. They really looked into different ways of parenting, right?
Yes.
So like, and as they talked about it. So I'm sorry, I'm talking about parenting instead of like their relationship, but it's all part together, of it, right?
No, yes, absolutely. I was actually thinking just last night, something came up. My daughter's been asking for something or complaining about something, and I didn't get to speak to my husband yet about it, but honey, if you're listening, we're going to talk about this. I realized that this is another element of our relationship, that we have to figure this out, and we have to help her in a certain way. And we will become stronger when we figure it out and help her become strong. So it's not two separate dichotomies there. It's all one unit. And it's funny because, when we date, people will date for a long time. And this is also a Hollywood paradigm, or just a dating system out there in the world, where you got to date for a number of years and you got to make sure you really love each other, but you're never ready for every single scenario that is going to come up, right? We just never know. So like you said, if you're there to marry the essence of the person and you see that your values align and they are essentially a good person, and for whatever reason you choose them, then go for it, and that is going to carry you through the relationship, the long-term relationship.
Totally. Yeah, that's really cool that you guys now get to have this next growth in your relationship because of this whole this, how you guys are going to work it out together and strategize together and come up with a way to co-parent together, right? So it's really beautiful. Yeah,
it's also helpful to tell the kids, if I said no, it doesn't mean you go to daddy and he says yes. It doesn't work that way. We're in sync. But I think what we're pointing to throughout this conversation is what I would call women empowerment, because we have this concept in Hollywood where they shout from the treetops, they shout from the rooftops how we need to empower ourselves in relationships, in love, and whatever their reasoning or the ways to go about it, that's the way Hollywood does it. The question is, what do we see over here that is true empowerment? And I see empowerment within you, Arielle, is that you have this role model, this paradigm of what love is in a successful way, how a relationship can thrive and last for many, many years. And even though we have punches that come left and right, but if we are grounded and if we have our morals in the right place, then this relationship will really last. And I think what you just spoke about and how you portrayed your parents and how you portrayed your family dynamics and what you carry that with you in life is so, so powerful.
I'm really grateful to them for showing me a beautiful loving relationship, but then also just allowing me to figure out what I want, so then I can help bring that into who I am, right? Yes. Because it's once you kind of figure out who you are, then you can bring that best version of yourself to the relationship. Mm-hmm. And no one's going to fix you. No, as soon as I'm in a relationship, I'm going to be fixed. I'll be good. I'll be whole. No. I'll be a better person. And once I'm in a relationship, whatever it is. I was talking to somebody the other day actually, and they said they're trying to give advice to somebody, and I'm listening and overhearing the whole conversation. And she's like, oh, once that person's in a relationship, once you get your son, I think it was your son into a relationship, he'll be better. No. And I'm like, that's all he needs is he'll be happier. And I'm like, what? no, this is the worst advice I've ever heard in my life. Like,
And why is that? Why do you say so?
no, that girl is not going to make him happier.
Yep.
He needs to figure out what he wants. What is his purpose? What is going to make him thrive and give him his own confidence?
Yes.
Because she's not going to bring that to the table. Yep. She'll be more attracted to him once he has that confidence and once he is doing what he loves. And yes, he might want to get married or be ready to get married, but he's truly not if he's not working on himself.
Absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, even though sometimes like short term, it may seem that someone's happy, but when they come into a relationship with a whole slew of baggage, and then they think that that's just going to dissolve as the relationship is evolving, it usually doesn't happen. It's usually part and parcel. That's where the therapists make all the money.
I have to say, I just want to add into this because
Yes.
my family is big on communication, and we have just never honestly raised our voices at each other. Maybe we've snapped a little bit here and there. Like everybody I feel like does. Sometimes you just you're hangry, you're whatever it is, right? And you'll just be and then my mom especially, and I'm going to speak on this in a second, but she and I, it very rarely happens. I could probably count on a hand how many times it's happened my whole life, if that.
Really?
And but the times that it has happened, we maybe have just been short with each other for a second, and then we literally will start laughing because we know how ridiculous we are and how this is not an effective way to communicate. And so then it actually makes the whole situation even better because we're just bursting out laughing because we're this is ridiculous.
Yes, and who doesn't love laughter? Laughter in a home is the best medicine for anything and everything.
It really is. So my brother has introduced this book called called Crucial Conversations, and it's have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. Haven't read it.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible.
You recommend it?
I highly recommend this book for everybody and anybody. It's great to have this with your business staff or your family or friends or just situations where you're having some turmoil with some a friend, even whatever it is, right?
Yes.
And it sets you up with these great tools to then take those into having better conversations. So I highly, I actually recommended it to a couple of people that are in relationships right now. And they were like, I really would love my spouse to be doing this and this and this. I was like, so why didn't you get this book? You guys can do it together, have these conversations together. And then that way you're not coming at them, attacking that person or whatever. Or therapists will say the I statements, I feel.
Yes.
No. There's a way to have a conversation where you don't even have to do that. You can just have this in a beautiful way. So Crucial Conversations
Beautiful. Love
is
it.
a great little recommendation. I'm going to just tell people if you're in a relationship, it doesn't matter even if you communicate really, really well. It's still a great tool. They give you a lot of tools in there to just continue to have really easy conversations together or crucial conversations together in an easy way.
Yes. And then the nice thing about having some kind of tools for communications is that when we speak like that in front of our kids, they end up picking up on it. I was taking this communication course in negotiating, and I taught some of the terms to my daughter, and then she comes to me the next day and she uses it right back on me, and I'm like, that's awesome. You learn how to be a negotiator at 10 years old.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
It's such a good tool.
It
And
is.
you just taught her. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great book. I'm definitely gonna look it up. And
it's a great read. It's again, it's one of those that you could read and read a little bit, because because there's different ways to have the conversations and different types. If someone's not understanding, you repetitively keep saying the same thing to that person and they just are not, right? And so you have to get your point across, right? And so there's a way to do that.
Absolutely.
And so anyways, I'm not going to give too much away because it's a great book and everybody should just read it.
Incredible. I definitely have to get my hands on it. But I think this conversation was amazing. You gave me so much insight. See, I thought I knew a little bit about your family, and you just opened up to such amazing insight and just beautiful things. And I love the positivity, and I love the paradigm that now your family it's not only about you now it's on a podcast so everyone can appreciate and learn from. So thank you so much for that. And Arielle, you have your own podcast. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are available. My podcast is The Connector with Arielle Leavitt. And what I do is talk about or talk to people or talk about things that can help connect you to a person, place, or thing that will help you next to level up in your life.
Amazing. Fantastic.
So thank you so much for having me. This is so, so wonderful. I appreciate
My
being here.
absolute pleasure. You just brightened up this podcast right here. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. If you are loving the Spark by Hollywood podcast, I'd appreciate if you can leave me a 5-star review on any platform that you're listening on, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Spark by Hollywood. That's where the conversation happens and where I get to give you extra content on all my episodes. And finally, I'd love to hear from you. Send me your feedback, your comments, your questions, and your aha moments to info@sparkbyhollywood.com. And remember, in a world where we are all enamored by the spark of Hollywood and its celebrities, always remember your own unique spark that you carry within you that makes you the gift that the world needs to shine that much brighter. I'll catch you in the next episode.